Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be going over one of my go-to methods for gathering company-agnostic loot in Sea of Thieves. As you probably gleaned from the title, this will involve FotD Damned. However, some of the ways that I go about it and the ways that I roll out into it make it significantly safer and easier than stacking in a large crew with a galleon on a contested server, and depending on which emissary you're flying, it also affects it as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the game. In order to do this strategy effectively in the same way that I'm doing it here, you'll need two things. You'll need a captain ship, and you'll need to be Pirate Legend. I recommend this strategy more highly for guild loot selling than I do for Reapers, as you'll have to hand jam sell everything one piece at a time if you're going to be selling this stuff to Reapers rather than Sovereigns. Though the strategy will still work. So in order of desirability, you want to start at either Plunder Outpost, Ancient Spire Outpost, or Daggertooth. Plunder is the most preferable, Ancient Spire is a close second, and Daggertooth is significantly worse. If you start at Plunder Outpost, you'll want to stop at Snake Island to get your Skulls of Destiny. If you start at Ancient Spire, you'll want to go to Crook's Hollow, and if you start at Daggertooth, you'll want to stop at Shipwreck Bay. Now, the main thing that will influence whether or not you accept Ancient Spire or Daggertooth is the population and sort of general read that you get on your server. Depending on how thorough you want to be, you can go to every emissary table on the outpost that you start on, check it, see how many emissaries there are of each company, but namely, the things that I look for is guild emissaries, especially grade 5 guild emissaries, and Reapers of any level, especially 5. One of the major things we're going to talk about through over the course of this video is visibility and how and when other players are going to be aware of what you're doing. Guild 5s are generally pretty good players. Not a lot of people sail for guilds other than people that put a lot of effort and time into the game. You will find the occasional one-off Guild 5 open crew galleon, but generally speaking, you have the highest chance of bumping into streamers, content creators, and other unemployed individuals whenever you come up against a Guild 5. So if you see one of those on the map, it might be best to hop off to a different server and try your luck there, instead of painting a giant target on your back in front of some of the best players in the game. And Reaper 5, likewise, plays into this as well, in that they will be able to see you, even as a grade 1 emissary, before you are even able to get to FotD Damned. So in this gameplay, I'm going to start from Daggertooth, and the reason that I accepted Daggertooth in this run is because I saw absolutely nothing on the map. No Guild 5s, no Reapers of any level, couldn't even see any other players from where I was starting except for one ship at Reaper's hideout that scuttled by the time I was even getting near FotD Damned. So we arrive at Shipwreck Bay, and this is where we start the SkoD of Destiny exploit, I guess you could call it. One of the ways that Rare has countered exploits in recent memory is that whenever you complete a voyage, that island becomes cooled down, effectively, for voyages to be on it in the near future. Now, however, the way that we're going to get these Skulls of Destiny, we're not going to actually complete a voyage. For some reason, when it comes to Skulls of Destiny, you actually have to dig them out of the ground and pick them up, or wait about 2 minutes after the initial shovel tap before the voyage completes itself. By exploiting this quirk in the voyage behavior, we can actually tap each skull with a shovel one time, run back to the ship, and cancel the voyage. Then just throw up another Skull of Destiny voyage and get another one on the same island that we're parked at. This isn't 100% consistent, as you will get wayfinders that point to different islands, but it's just as easy as canceling the voyage whenever it's pointing to the wrong island, voting up a new one until you see the needle wiggle whenever it's in your hand. If it's wiggling erratically, that means that it's on the island in front of you, as well as the wayfinder should be pointing at the island in front of you. Now, an important level of discipline to have with this is getting the amount of Skulls of Destiny that you're actually going to use and need. There is something to be said for grabbing 6 extra for however many stacks you're going to do. So say you wanted to do a 3 stack, grabbing 9 Skulls of Destiny would be effective, as you could have one of each color for stunning the Flames of Fate. However, I don't find this very necessary in solo, as there's only a few skeletons and it's actually quite easy to flick through the skull colors, and just practicing this skill and learning how to fight the waves with only one Skull of Destiny on the ground will make you significantly better in situations where you don't have 6 extra skulls to destroy the waves with. Say you steal a FotD Damned that has 2 Skulls of Destiny on it, and you want to finish those 2 stacks, knowing how to use the skulls is a significantly better skill than knowing how to pick up 6 and take them with you. Also, taking 6 extras will slow down our rollout at Fort of the Damned and potentially make us an easier target for other players, so we don't want to do that. If you don't want 6 extra Skulls of Destiny, what I would recommend for this strategy precisely is to grab 3. We're going to do a 2-stack Fort of the Damned for Guild Emissary Flag, and in order to get to Guild 5 and sell our loot at the maximum possible value, we need 2 Fort of the Damneds. The reason we're grabbing 3 skulls is because we want to have a 3rd skull when we're doing our 2nd fort in order to stun the skeletons and make killing them much, much easier. One small piece of advice that I have, if you're able to exploit it, is over the course of starting and canceling all of these voyages, you're going to have a lot of pop-ups built up on your screen, so all these banners that are dropping in and out are going to be coming in and out for a long time, even after you've finished gathering however many skulls you want and start sailing towards Fort of the Damned. Now you have 2 options to get rid of these. The first is to force close the game by either dashboarding or Alt F4ing and simply rejoining your ship, as the game will give you about a 10 to 15 minute grace period if your game is detected to have crashed or force closed, where it'll let you rejoin. If you leave the game straight up through the menus, this won't happen. Your ship will instantly scuttle and it'll all be for nothing. The other way to go about this, if you don't want to have to force close the game, is you'll need to have someone else join your ship. And the major concern about this, and the reason we want this to be a guild ship, is you need to have a guild member join your crew so that your ship doesn't lose captaincy whenever you leave legally through the menus, if that makes sense. So as you can see here, I have one of my guild mates join me, and then I leave the game, rejoin, and that clears all the pop-ups off my screen. You don't have to do this by any means. It's not like the skeletons are really that hard to fight with pop-up banners, but for the sake of the video, I thought it would be much more productive to not make you look at all those banners. So, jumping forward to FotD, as you're pulling up, you want to do a good 360 around you to make sure there's no ships in the immediate area, as if you start a Fort of the Damned while there's a ship 1 island away, you're likely just going to have to contend with them instantly before you can even get 1 round done. So, when you pull up, here's how I like to roll out. Grab one of your Skulls of Destiny and run it up to the top. As you go, spot kegs that you can put into your keg wall. Set your Skull of Destiny down in the room up at the top, and head back down the fort, grabbing a few kegs and stuffing them into keg wall as you go. If you've never seen keg wall before, effectively what this allows you to do is keep kegs in play without blowing them up by placing them in this wall where they're impossible to be picked up without using a harpoon. If a player walks up to this and tries to take the keg out of the wall to use it on your ship, they just won't be able to get it. So Tuckers are completely foiled by this, and if you have another ship pulling up to harpoon the kegs out of the wall, you clearly have bigger problems than someone grabbing a keg. You're probably getting cannoned at that point. So after throwing a few kegs in keg wall, grab another one of your skulls, run it up to the top, maybe throw a few more kegs in the wall on your way back down, and then you can proceed to go grab your 3rd skull. In this run, I had a ship down at Plunder Outpost, so I was trying to stall a little bit and give them time to dive or go to whatever they were going to do before I broadcasted a big skull in the sky that says, "Hey, there's loot over here, come fight me." Because of this, my rollout was a little bit slower than it would have been otherwise, but all you really need to know is putting a reasonable amount of kegs in keg wall in solo is about 4 to 5, puts Grey Marrow at a very low amount of health, and getting all 3 of your skulls upstairs to the top of the fort. Also, before you leave the ship with your 3rd Skull of Destiny, make sure you have at least 1 throwable, either Blunderbomb or Firebomb. So wave clearing the skeletons is pretty easy. It very heavily depends on which weapons you bring with you. I would always recommend having a sword, as it allows you to kill an infinite amount of skeletons at the same time in a pinch. And I've come to really enjoy throwing knives as my secondary weapon for this, as it allows me to very quickly dispatch scattered skeletons that wouldn't be as easy to sword lunge through. However, with the lingering hitboxes that you can probably see in different places in this video, it can be a bit of a chore, as your knives will hit skeletons that you've already killed for about 2 to 3 seconds after they already died. Halfway through the fort, you're going to have your first set of captains. Now these are a little bit harder to kill, but still easy to deal with. If you have one with a sword and one with a gun, I like to focus on the sword skeleton first, as he'll make it harder for you to effectively deal damage to the gun skeleton until he's dead. So I usually give the melee, if there is one, a few sword lunges and then kill him with throwing knives. After that, you can easily just spam throwing knives at the remaining captain. This is the halfway point in the normal waves. You'll have more waves of normal skeletons after this. And toward the end you'll get some stronghold kegs before the second set of captains. To talk about the general wave clearing a little bit though, the reason that we have these extra Skulls of Destiny is that we're going to leave them on the ground and change their color to match the color of the skeletons that are coming that wave. This allows us to never have to use a lantern to light the skeletons ourselves. As you can probably see from this, I stay entirely inside of this building up at the top the entire time. By moving the skull around the room slightly, you can completely destroy the skeletons that spawn inside of this building, and use the skull to create a choke point at the front door where all the skeletons are going to come in. Like I was saying before, throwing knives can be a little fiddly here, as if you kill multiple skeletons in the same spot, the lingering death hitboxes from them will block your following knives. Very annoying, hopefully that gets patched someday, but for the time being, if you have a group of 4 or more skeletons building up in the doorway, you're just going to want to give them a sword lunge and kill them all instantly. To really hyper-focus on the Skull of Destiny and its handling, you press the alternate interact button to change the color of the flame in it, or you can pick it up and use left click or right trigger to change the color as well. I typically only try to pick up the skull whenever I'm actually repositioning it for the wave as well, but if you are going to pick up and move the skull, that's also a perfect time to quickly cycle through the colors. It takes a while to get the hang of, it's not second nature by any means, but you will eventually learn the amount of clicks that you need to do of either button in order to get the right color out. All of the Flames of Fate and the Skull of Destiny go in a set order. The skeletons come out in a random sequence of colors, but you can control how you're changing your skull and knowing the sequence of the colors in it. It goes white, pink, blue, green, red, purple. So if you are on blue and purple skeletons start spawning, you know you need to press the button 3 times. Additionally, if you're ever having trouble figuring out what color a wave is going to be, if they say all spawn outside, you can look at the hands at the base of the ferryman statues to see what color of skeleton is coming next. So the last wave of normal skeletons is going to come with some stronghold gunpowder barrels, almost every time. A few times they haven't in my experience, but almost every time you should expect it. Whenever this does happen, definitely try to save this gunpowder barrel for the next wave. Play a little bit more carefully, and if you have to, grab the color lantern and run away with it. That way that you can lead the actual normal skeletons away from the stronghold keg skeletons, as they move a lot slower. As you can see on this first run, I actually do end up blowing up one of the stronghold kegs, which I feel like I definitely hit that guy's legs. I really don't agree with that, but moving on. It actually managed to save the other stronghold keg next to it because it killed the skeleton holding it and made it immune to being blown up as well, so I'm still able to show this strategy in the next wave. Whenever the second group of captains comes out, what you want to do is very quickly figure out what color they're going to be, change your Skull of Destiny to that color, light the stronghold keg or one or more that you've saved, and then throw it on the ground in the center of the room and run outside and survive. All said and done, if you hit this stronghold keg perfectly, the boss fight will start right away. Now here's the boss, Ghost of Grey Marrow. If you put enough kegs into the wall, this will be an easy insta-kill. If you didn't, he's still going to be incredibly weak. Run outside of the building, drop off over your keg stack on keg wall, drop down to the lower area, turn around, and aim your throwable up towards the kegs. This is why we want to have this throwable with us, because throwing knives will put us so close to the keg wall that if there's any stronghold kegs in it, it will basically instantly kill us. Foreshadowing. When Grey Marrow dies, he'll drop the key to the vault below the building that we've been fighting in this whole time. So up until this point, we've had the giant red skull cloud in the sky over us. From the moment that we popped the skull onto the skeleton in the cage to start the Fort of the Damned and start the fighting, we've had a giant beacon in the sky, we've had a Reaper chest marked on the map, and now that Grey Marrow's dead, that skull has gone away, but we still have 2 Reaper chests on the map and the key marked on the map as well. So if you're trying to be incognito and draw as little attention to yourself as possible, what you want to do at this moment is grab the key, immediately slot it into the vault, grab the Reaper chests out of the vault, and bury them right away. This is effectively removing all traces of yourself off of the map as soon as possible. Assuming that you're not a Reaper emissary, once you get these Reaper chests buried, there will be nothing on the map to indicate that you are at the Fort of the Damned, that the Fort of the Damned has recently been done, and effectively any player that has not been paying attention up until now, and or has just loaded into the game, will have no idea that you're here. If you are extremely paranoid and you would be content with one FotD stack, now would be a great time to check your map and see if there's any Reaper 5s that have a read on you, or also just scanning the horizon and see if anyone is approaching. However, if you are committed to the 2 stack and you wouldn't be selling loot below grade 5 guild or grade 5 Reaper anyways, what you should do at this point is grab all of the loot in the vault, throw it onto the barrel on the left side, and start the new Fort of the Damned as soon as possible. However, there is 2 things that we need to take care of before we can start that. First of all, easy, throw your tridents, and if you're feeling saucy, the normal kegs outside of the vault door. That's a quick one. Now, the complicated thing that requires a little bit more thought and choice is whether or not you want to keep and or sell the stronghold kegs. I personally am done with the commendation, and I've just been burned too many times by running over kegs in the water or something like that, and having to deal with, losing a 2-stack Fort of the Damned because I ran over a bird keg in the water. I just don't sell kegs anymore unless it's like a community weekend or something. So what I will do with these 4 stronghold kegs is put them in keg wall and use them for the guaranteed insta-kill on the next stack. If you do want to keep the stronghold kegs, however, what you'll want to do is take them over to the loot cliff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and throw them off the edge so they're far and away from anything else that's going to blow up. This will probably be close to your ship, so if you have any tuckers in play, it would be very dangerous to put the kegs down there, but if you're keeping kegs, you're already playing a pretty dangerous game. To follow up on that, if you are saving the stronghold kegs, you'll want to put the normal gunpowder kegs in keg wall to make your next kill easier. The most important thing if you do want to save kegs is don't stack them on the barrel, because if any explosions go off inside of the fort building, which they will if you use the method that I do, the kegs that have been moved by a player will be affected by explosions. Until a keg is picked up and put down for the first time, it's immune to splash damage and any explosive damage, which means that, kegs won't be blown up inside of the vault if you blow up a keg in the room during the first stack. However, if you put them on the barrel, they will blow themselves up whenever you sympathetically blow up a keg in the building above. That being said, with whatever keg wall that you have set up, it's time to start the second round. There's not too much to say that we haven't said already, same as the first, but just be aware that anyone on the server now knows that you are stacking Fort of the Damned if they've been paying attention up until this point, especially if you haven't buried your Reaper's chest. It's going to be visible on the player's map that there are the Reaper's chest in the default vault position and some slightly to the right, as well as the beacons in the sky being more extreme and noticeable. So if you didn't bury your Reapers, now is definitely the time to be a little bit more paranoid and get through these waves quickly. Thankfully, it is easier to clear the waves this time, as we have tridents to help us out as well. I personally am not a huge fan of tridents in solo, as I feel like I can clear the 7 skeletons with knives and sword just as effectively as I can with a bubble, but it definitely helps out with a captain, so make sure you use it for that. So taking this opportunity now that these waves are a little bit more easier and you already know how to do it, to talk about some ways that you can know when things are going wrong on this fort. Whenever you are soloing Fort of the Damned, it will spawn 7 skeletons at a time in a normal wave and 2 skeleton captains during the captain waves. If you ever feel like you're getting more skeletons than 7, it's because another player ship or swimming player has entered the title card radius of Fort of the Damned, and you need to immediately figure out what's going on. If you look around and you don't see a ship, it's most likely a swimmer. It would be a good idea to clear another wave just so you can make sure you're not going crazy and you got the count right. And if there's more than 7 skeletons, you know someone is tucked somewhere on the fort. At that point, it would be a great idea to blow up any stronghold kegs or kegs that are not secured in the keg wall. Because as much as you would be led to believe from streamers and YouTubers pulling off all these amazing steals, it's actually really, really hard to sync a competent alert crew as a tucker without some sort of tool. A keg, a skeleton ship, a megalodon, an island cannon. They can bash you into a rock and spawn camp you on your ship, but realistically you're going to be able to respawn and grab buckets long enough that you can get a lucky kill on them. Nobody is good enough to just not be killed for multiple respawn cycles. You can win those fights. So that being said, getting through your captain waves with your tridents and killing your other skeletons with tridents or as normal, I find that I always have plenty of trident ammunition even if I'm using them all the time. For example, in this run, I still use my stronghold kegs to kill second captains. I used my trident pretty liberally before that, and I barely even used one. Now I'm going to pretend that I'm showing an example of how not to handle Grey Marrow, but genuinely I just forgot to bring a throwable with me on this second stack. If you do find yourself in a position with Grey Marrow out and you don't have a throwable, use a trident to detonate keg wall, because as you can see here, 4 stronghold kegs, if you're in throwing knife range where you can realistically hit those kegs and you're not just cracked at throwing knives, you're going to die. But even if you do die, it's not the end of the world, because now we are at a position where we can basically exfiltrate this situation with our loot. We still have a lot of loot to move since we barrel stacked it the first time, but at this point we are more or less free to run away with whatever loot we can get. And this is where a lot of personal preference and knowing what your goals are as a player comes into factor. Say you need merchant reputation really bad. This would be a time where you would want to grab ancient bone dust first, just in case another ship rocks up on you, so that you can sell those if you have to run away in a hurry, or if you need Reaper chests, or you really only care about the Athena, the win condition, or you're trying to level Hunter's Call, you should go for the gems, things like that. That's the kind of stuff you want to be focusing on in this situation, especially if you can see any ships closing in on you. As you've been doing Fort of the Damned for about 15 minutes at this point, and anyone who is on this server and has their eyes open and has any sort of confidence in themselves in PvP is going to be on the way, if not very close to you. So what you'll want to do is take your loot and throw it off of the loot cliff over here. A lot of people will stack loot on this little spike that sticks out over the loot cliff. I personally don't see a reason in that at all. I guess it keeps your loot closer to you so you can keep an eye on it. But realistically, like we've talked about, anyone that's tucking or swimming up to your fort, all they can do is take one piece of loot. So unless you're really that worried about someone swimming away with one of your 2 Athena chests that took you 15 minutes to get, there's not much harm in throwing your loot off the cliff, as it makes it significantly easier to harpoon once you get everything down there. So assuming you're approaching this the same way that I am, as a guild emissary and not a Reaper emissary, the obvious choice here is to go to plunder. So if you can get a crew member in to help you move the loot and quickly get on out of dodge, head down to plunder, as it's the easiest place to see if there's a ship positioned at it. The entire right side of the island is where all the points of interest is, so unless someone is making a deliberate effort to hide from you behind the island, it'll be very obvious to you if anyone's ship has spawned there or if anyone is selling there at Sovereigns. The backup choice, of course, is Ancient Spire, but that one makes me a little uneasy as it's hard to see the outpost while you're on the approach from Fort of the Damned. But unless Reaper bounties and Reaper chests are your main priority here, you should make a beeline for Plunder Outpost and sell off all of your loot to the Sovereigns. Another important thing that I'd like to touch on is the loot that's not really worth taking, or that I don't take from Fort of the Damned. Obviously, we talked about Stronghold kegs already, and then Trident. Tridents are worth 250 base gold if you're not in Gold Hour or Community Weekend or anything. So, I mean, make your own decision, but I don't think Tridents are worth it at all. They're definitely not worth the extra time it takes to move 4 extra items of loot, whereas 4 Reaper chests take the exact same amount of time. And like we talked about before, Stronghold kegs are a pretty huge risk, especially if you see any players coming up on you. I would definitely hazard you against taking the Stronghold kegs, even if you've kept them. If anything, the safest way to approach Stronghold kegs is stashing them somewhere on the fort, not blowing them up, and just leaving them behind while you go to sell the rest of your loot. Keep your emissary flag up, and then come back for them and take a load of just Stronghold kegs. Because at that point, if one of your kegs blows up, they all blew up anyways, so what if you sink? You've already lost everything the second they blow up. Once you get everything sold off to Sovereigns, go ahead and grab all your Reaper bounties onto the ship if you harpooned them off, and take them over to Reaper's hideout if you still want to sell them. Like we were talking about before, if anyone was on the way to hurt you, at this point they will definitely be right on top of you. So get ready to fight over those bounties. This is the moment where even the slowest crew that wants to get a piece of you is going to be there and ready to fight you. That being said though, you're only going to have 4 Reaper's chests, so if you just want to slip by them without getting chopped or chain shot, or anchored or boarded, you can easily get to the Reaper's hideout and sell at least 2, if not 4 of those bounties before they can catch up with you. Just something to keep in mind. We personally gave up all of the Reaper chests and bounties to another crew that we found that already had one in exchange for a Horn of Fair Winds.
Snatch me.
Too easy. Be gone from my vessel. Good doing business with you. Goodbye. If you are going to take stronghold kegs on a sloop, you will want to put them in the crow's nest. On brigs and galleon, it is significantly better to put kegs on the very tip of your ship, as it'll give you less holes, less knockback, less likely to kill a player, and allow you to potentially recover from the explosion. However, on a sloop, with anything more than 1 stronghold keg, you are certainly going to get knocked off of your ship, if not instantly killed. So basically, if you blow up stronghold kegs on your ship on a sloop, you should effectively consider it GG. And the most likely thing that's going to blow up your kegs in a situation when there's no players around you is a random keg floating in the water. And for that reason, you'll want to put your kegs in the crow's nest so that if you do run over a keg floating in the water, your stronghold kegs won't actually go off. It's still going to suck, but I can't tell you how many times I've hit a bird keg and lost an entire stack of FotDs because there's just no way to recover it. Both players get instantly killed or knocked off the ship, and by the time you can escape Merm Hell, the ship is already sunk. So, if you're not afraid of PvP, put them on the mast. And even if you are afraid of PvP, you should probably just throw them off the ship anyways, or backboard the other ship with them. But yeah, that's about all I have for you today. This isn't necessarily the best gold or reputation per hour, but it is extremely easy and gives you progress on a lot of difficult commendations. All of your stronghold loot gives you a lot of mermaid gems to sell to the Hunter's Call, is the best by far source of Reaper chests in the game. You won't get nearly this many per hour by sailing around to shipwrecks. And it is just a pretty good consistent way to level guilds as well as all of your normal factions. But yeah, if you have any questions and you'd like to pitch them to me in the comment section below, I'd be more than happy to feel them out and see if we can get you an answer. Also, if you're interested in grinding Sea of Thieves, we have a little guild going. As always, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.
Oh, sweet. So this is how the megaphone thing works?
Yeah, also, you don't need it, I'm behind you. Hello. Is that a day 1 eye patch? Goddamn!